You can see me play live and get gameplay like you'll see in this video by subscribing and looking out for my streams, generally pushing out between 3 and 6 a week. I'll see you there. Alright everyone, I really hope you appreciate this being my third time recording this commentary because my mic was screwing up and I want to make sure it's good for you guys. So, the background footage today is Battlefield 1 as that's the Battlefield game I now enjoy playing rather than BF5 before anyone asks me why that's the case today. And I don't tend to deal in speculation. That's the opening for today's video, especially when it comes to Battlefield. I'm just not a creator who wants to gain viewership based on rumours alone. As I've stated recently on Twitter and such like, it's just not for me. So while today we're tackling the issue of larger modes in Battlefield 6, maybe I'm not getting at all involved in those leaks or rumours, you may or may not know what I'm talking about, I was going to make this video regardless because it seemed like the logical next step the game might take, and thus a lot of people have been asking for larger modes. Now if you want to dive into the rumours and get hyped up about the next game or what it might be or anything like that, that's totally up to you, feel free. I just won't be getting involved in it in this video. Many are really excited about that prospect and that's awesome, but I do feel it's important to lay out the aspects that many perhaps won't consider, the things that DICE need to carefully balance. Feel free to leave your thoughts on the matter in the comments below, and whatever happens, let's hope we get a great next Battlefield game. Here we go. This video is brought to you by the epic Patreon supporters via the Board of Awesome and the channel members who've used the join button to get exclusive channel perks, and the current goal for the channel is to hit 70k subscribers, currently at 63k, and with many watching via recommendations rather than subscriptions, there's room for growth. So if you don't want to miss my regular streams and videos, hit the subscribe button, that would be fantastic, thank you so much. I think huge, perhaps double the current max size game modes in Battlefield sounds awesome, at least on paper. Massive scale battles with the right atmosphere seems like a great combination, and gaming communities often want more and more, but more isn't always better, indeed bigger isn't always better. A current consideration I have is that the large scale game modes currently in Battlefield, so 64 player modes, whether it be BF5, BF1 or otherwise, run on 30Hz servers, while some smaller modes are on 60Hz servers. Now personally, I'd rather the next step be for 64 player modes to gain 60Hz or better capable servers, for a superior gaming experience overall, for more reliable gunfights, for a smoother game. Now that's not to say that the next Battlefield can't possibly have 128 player 60Hz modes. Again, no speculation, not getting involved. But what I am saying is that it's a big jump, and if it can't or won't happen, then 60Hz servers would be my personal priority. Likely not the priority of the average casual player, and the game does need to be tailored towards the casual market of course, but I think a lot of you out there, whether you realise it or not, would actually massively benefit from better, more capable servers. It avoids a lot more of those deaths and situations that leave you feeling totally shortchanged and cheated, and it's just kind of hard to argue against an overall smoother experience, I feel. But that's just one point, let's move on. A small group of players enjoyed maps like Hamada, Panzerstorm and Al Sandan in BF5, but I would say the majority of players absolutely did not. Now doubling the size of the team sizes means the maps have to change as well, or at least they should do. How do you go about doing this? Well, it requires truly excellent map design, something that I personally don't feel BF5 delivered very consistently at all, so it's a big ask to not only deliver quality maps with great flow that don't simply incentivize being stationary, but also ones that can now handle massive modes and avoid the issues of the large maps we've already seen. Now maybe having double the amount of players and the map be designed well would fix the issue of how big the maps are, and that'd be great, but we can't just assume that, so let's look at the other side. Think of it this way, do you really want an experience like a bigger Hamada, with maybe twice as many players just littering the map? Or what about maybe a larger Devastation, with double the amount of clutter, more rocks, more broken walls, more windows, more places you simply can't possibly check before being shot from? A common theme within BF5 was maps that were either super open, or maps that were totally filled with random objects and clutter, and too infrequently the more desired in between. That great mix of solid cover, lanes, smaller open areas and such like. Varied map design with many ways to approach it. Now it must be noted that a combination of poor visibility at times and a lack of manual spotting exacerbated this issue. Now I'm not talking about people using quote unquote camouflage or sitting somewhere tactically or whatever. I'm talking about people just lying down in the open and not being seen, which did happen a lot at one point. And I'm also not saying we must have manual spotting, although I'd personally like to have it back, but I think the game could work either way if the map design and art direction and style are really nailed. If we're gonna have huge maps with huge team sizes, we absolutely must be able to see the enemy enemy without too much issue. Or it's going to be like Battlefield 5 finding the needle in the haystack on steroids. No speculation, that's just objective fact. The art direction and design needs to be just right. It fixes a lot of problems if it's done well. More like BF1 or BF4 or something like that, not like BF5, because as pretty as it looked at times, it was an unreliable experience where target acquisition was concerned. Regardless of that, it's the basic principle I touched upon before. You simply can't check your corners and angles with that many players. Perhaps you won't mind this, some players don't or won't, but some do. Think of the amount of random, uncontrollable deaths you currently receive in Battlefield. A sniper in a bush on a hillside, a guy camping a corner you're about to walk around, a plane bombing you, a tank behind you, an enemy parachuting down onto you, whatever, or a whole host of other possibilities. That's kind of Battlefield, right? That's part of the beauty of it, part of the experience. Those only in Battlefield moments to a degree, some of you might say. But isn't that already enough? Maybe I'm wrong, it's quite possible, only time will tell. But many of you complain about quote-unquote bullshit like that when it's happening a lot, when it's happening specifically to you. Well, if you double the team sizes, expect double the bullshit. It's going to be hectic, manic, random. You'll have even less control over those events. You'll be relying upon your random teammates to watch your back even more so, which is already super unreliable, as I'm sure you all know. And a lot of people also ask for more verticality in the maps, which would shrink them down to a degree if we're going to have 128 player modes, but only via your perspective. Actually, they're still just as big, they're just going vertically as well as horizontally, and it actually gives you kind of more places you have to check because you're having to look up rather just around. Basically, be careful what you wish for. 128 players sounds awesome, but it brings with it problems. Consider them carefully. A lot of things need to be done well for it to actually work. Then what about the fatigue that's involved? The fatigue of constant focus, of perpetually scanning thousands of places for potential danger. Like when you're playing on Twisted Steel on BF5, for example. You and I both know you simply can't really check your surroundings a lot of the time particularly well. You're just going to get shot sometimes, which again is Battlefield, but I'm talking about it being even more extreme than that. And what about the fatigue of a perhaps frustrating gameplay loop? Spawn, head towards action, die from random spot, repeat. It already happens sometimes, it could get even worse, which is why I'm putting so much emphasis upon map design and being able to see the enemy. This is also why laser beam weapons like those in BF5 are a real problem. And I'm not making this video to bash BF5, by the way. It just so happens to be the most relevant and recent game from DICE to see where their head's at, what the management do, and what they're capable of. Now, like in BF5, if everyone is lethal pretty much all the time from almost anywhere, somewhat regardless of skill due to the weapons and how they work, it makes for a really troubling scenario. One that people have complained about in BF5 without really realizing where the source problem lay. I know a lot of people enjoy the BF5 gunplay, myself included to a degree, but balancing that gunplay and the way it makes the game play has a lot of unforeseen issues if you're not particularly analytically minded or don't put the time into analysing it, which I know most people won't because it's just a game and you just want to enjoy it, and I totally understand that. But yes, I am one of the few that prefer the BF1 gunplay design. No bias here, I have better stats in Battlefield 5 than BF1, but as someone with a KD of 3.5 in BF5 and 3.2 in BF1, and I say that not to toot my own horn and not because KD is the most important thing, but just so you can see where I lie on the ability spectrum and see where my opinion is formed from, I can tell you that BF1 guns don't suck, and I can objectively show it. A lot of people think they do, but actually it just requires knowledge that the game doesn't provide for you, which is a failing of BF1. That kind of gunplay can create a better gameplay loop, or rather a mix of that gameplay, I feel, with something like BF4 or BF5, so that you can please more people and hit that nice in-between casual market, whilst providing a skill gap for the more able players. But that's a different topic for a whole different video that I might actually make in the near future. On top of this, if you add 128 player servers, does that mean new modes? Or does that mean expanding the old modes to it? Does this replace 64 player servers? Or does this knock out some of the smaller 32 player modes? Can they all coexist? In BF5 we saw modes removed even without 128 player servers, because there weren't enough people playing some of the modes to populate them. And we also saw servers removed from certain areas of the world, forcing players into other regions just to pack out the servers there. So can a Battlefield game reliably fill 128 player servers whilst maintaining the player base of the other modes and without removing fan favourite modes that people expect to be in there, providing the variety that people want from a Battlefield game? I'll say that if the game is successful, then yes, it can do all of these things. If not, then no, based upon current evidence. And so this is why, whenever I'm asked what I want from BF6, I simply say I want it to be good. I don't care where it's set, how many players are playing on the map, map, really what the gunplay design is or anything like that, although all of these things matter, but overall I just want it to be good and then many of the problems fade away. And so perhaps huge player number modes would be awesome. If they do it, I hope it is awesome. I'm not against it at all. If you can do it well, then that'd be amazing. But there are reasons to be cautious or apprehensive. Again, be careful what you wish for. We don't know if we're getting the dice that can make a great game here or the dice that can screw it up. And there's a multitude of criteria that must be met in order to ensure it all works out, including making sure it's not a buggy mess. They couldn't do it in BF5 with 64 player modes, so can they do it in BF6 with potentially 128 player modes? Well, with more development time, focus, next-gen hardware on the new consoles, and hopefully far better management, maybe so, it should help. Time will tell. And so that is me playing devil's advocate today, but also me being overall hopeful for the next title. And I hope you enjoyed my presentation. If you did, hit the like button for me and maybe subscribe to say a lot more, including my regular streams. If you didn't enjoy them, perhaps a dislike and let me know what I could do better next time. All the links to my social media, including Twitter, Patreon, Discord, etc., are in the description and my pinned comments. And with all of that said, I'm GetGoodGuy, and I'll see you next time. Laters. 3 shots to center mass out to 20 meters and 4 shots beyond that. This produces a very competitive and reliable time to kill as it fires at 360 rounds per minute. So if we compare with say the M1917 MG low weight, a gun that's endured criticism before for being low skill, easy to use,